Proverbs 20 and verse 12, the hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. Now, I have been thoroughly enjoying our class on Proverbs. Now, you may not have, may not be at all, but I have been, and I enjoy looking at Proverbs and trying to look a little more into them and go a little bit deeper in what a proverb would mean. Or actually, a proverb can point in two or more directions. And those directions, all those directions, be true, and they are not contradicting each other. If you have something that contradicts, obviously there's a problem in an interpretation. But you can have proverbs that have specific meanings, and it doesn't really, you can go deep as far as that meaning goes. But there are times when something is brought up, that there's a proverb that there's a greater meaning or more than one direction in it. And once again, not contradictory directions at all. But the hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. So what does that mean? Okay, we're going to look at what that means, because that's going to be that the one who can create your eyes and create your ears and everyone on the earth, surely He has eyes and ears too. And in fact, they are far greater than ours. Psalm 94 and verse 9. Now we'll come back to Psalm 94 in a minute, but we're just going to look at verse 9. He who planted the ear, shall he not hear? He who formed the eye, shall he not see? It would be ridiculous to think, and some do, that God neither sees us nor hears us, and we can do whatever we want. Some would think that God created everything, put everything into motion, and kind of walked away. He's off occupied doing something else, somewhere else, and takes no interest in us. Well, that would be very peculiar, that He takes no interest in us and yet sent His Son here to die for us. Obviously, He takes an interest. And it would be very peculiar for Him to have walked away and not having interest in us, and yet has sent us prophet after prophet after prophet, book after book after book, being put together for the entire Bible to tell us how to live. Obviously, He hasn't walked away. And obviously, He knows what goes on the earth. Obviously, He knows what we need, having known what goes on here on earth, for Him to have sent His Son for the specific reason that He did. And it's to take away the sins of the world. Now, let's talk about God's eyes and ears for a moment. God sees the righteous. And we need to understand that. God sees us. And He knows of the innocent. He knows those who belong to Him. With Luke chapter 15. Luke chapter 15. You have the parable of the 100 sheep, and one of them goes astray. All right. Does God see the righteous? Yeah, He knows the 99 that are left, but He's going after the one that the 99 that continue to be with Him. But He's got to go get that one. He knows of that one, and God sees the righteous. He knows the 99, and we'll get to the unrighteous in just a second. But Psalm 34 and verse 15, the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and His ears are open to their cry. So what's the implication of that? Actually, it's more than just implication. It's that the righteous, on occasion, they are being persecuted. They have some sort of trial, some sort of tribulation, something in their life, and they are crying to Him, and He hears. Anything going on in your life, you pray to Him, and He will hear. You pray. Don't just assume that He knows everything, He'll take care of it. He wants to be petitioned. because He wants that kind of relationship of truly a trust in Him, relying on Him. And He is open to your cry, and His eyes are on you. His eyes see what's happening, and things are being recorded. They are being recorded as to what you have suffered, and things are being recorded on those who are putting you in that suffering. Things are being recorded in that, and His eyes are open to the cries of the righteous, the cries of all innocent. God also sees the unrighteous. Ezekiel 8:18, therefore I also will act in my fury. This is God speaking to Israel. My eye will not spare, nor will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, I will not hear them. Now, you say, well, he may see the unrighteous, but He's not listening to them. Well, actually, yes. He knows what they're doing. He knows what they're saying, but He's not going. You can go to a certain point in your disobedience, just ignoring, rebellious, and there comes a point in time where God slams that door. Just like God closes the door of the ark, and if you're not inside that ark, you're not getting in. Just as in Matthew chapter 25, where you have the parable of the 10 virgins, when the bridegroom came and the door was shut, there's no getting in. Here is, He closes the opportunities. He closes that time. The time is over. I will not hear them. Then come to me with a loud voice. It's done. He's done with them. And it's time for punishment. And it is too late. When He brings down the hammer on the anvil, it is too late to then begin to cry to Him. You prove yourself to be just wicked and continuing in wickedness, and when it is time for punishment, then you're going to cry to Him. It may be too late at that point. And when we're talking about God seeing and also God hearing, we need to understand this relationship that we can have with Him. A relationship. Now, we go back to Psalm 94, and we begin in verse 4 this time. They utter speech and speak insolent things. This is talking about the wicked. All the workers of iniquity boast in themselves. They break in pieces your people, O Lord, and afflict your heritage. They are making victims of the righteous. That's what they're doing. These insolent people, these people of iniquity, these wicked people, they are going after the righteous. They see easy targets, one, but also people they know are following God, and they can just roll right over them. They can just roll right over them and make them into easy prey. These predators. Now, they break in pieces your people, and Lord, O Lord, and afflict your heritage. They slay the widow and the stranger and murder the fatherless. There's nothing beneath them. They'll do any of these things. And do not think that somehow we don't have people precisely like this living today, because we do. There are people that are precisely like this. They would pose that. I just saw a thing here recently. They started off with this photo of this woman. She seemed like, just from the photos, she seemed pleasant enough. She's somewhat attractive, pleasant appearance, looked pleasant enough personality-wise, and then you find out, oh yeah, she murdered about everyone she knew. She murdered her parents. She murdered her mother-in-law and her father-in-law. And actually, I think her mother-in-law survived. I can't remember. Some survived. Some died. And you think, wow, that's not a good person. Obviously, you cannot judge by appearances. That's not a good person at all. And understand, there are people living today, they will slay the widow if they can get away with it, and the stranger and the fatherless if it's to their benefit and they can get away with it. They will gladly do that. We're no different. We have a culture no different than what we see that the psalmist is writing, or that Ezekiel was writing about. Now, yet they say, doing all this, the Lord does not see, nor does the God of Jacob understand. How would you come? You have fooled yourself thinking something like that your Creator doesn't see. How do you see and He can't see? He doesn't understand. How do you understand and He doesn't understand? You think you can fool Him? You have done nothing but fool yourself. You have lied to yourself and somehow convinced yourself that God doesn't see and He doesn't understand. How naive are you? That you have made a fool of yourself like this. The God of Jacob does understand. He does see. He witnesses everything. Understand, you senseless among the people, and you fools. When will you be wise? There is a good question. When are you going to actually wake up and realize that the things that you have done, you're going to be judged for? And I think there is a time that comes within everyone's life, and I do mean, I think everyone, though I cannot prove it, that you get to a certain age and you realize, I have fewer days ahead of me than were behind me, and you begin to think about things like this. I think that in hope, with some people, in hoping there is no judgment and that they won't actually be judged for the things that they've done. And just some of them live the life that they've always lived, which is bad, or begin to change. That's for the good. That's for the good. Now, change completely and follow Christ and follow Him completely. Understand, you senseless among the people, and you fools, when will you be wise? Oh, I just shut that thing off. He who planted the ear, shall he not hear? He who formed the eye, shall he not see? He's making that argument. He's making that argument. He's the one that made your eyes. He's the one that made your ears. And you think He has no way of sensing what's going on? That He has no wisdom in any of this? That's nonsensical. It's completely nonsensical. It's like saying that the one who created your car knows nothing about the engine, knows nothing about the system that keeps it running, knows nothing about transmission. What do you mean? That's the one who created it. That's the one who designed it. Here, how can you fool yourself into thinking that somehow these things can be done without Him knowing? Well, He does know. Now let's talk about man's eyes and ears, because God created the eyes and the ears. We've looked at one side of it. That's concerning what that means about the Creator. Now let's talk about what it means about the created, us. All right? Here is that side of man refusing to use his eyes and his ears. And we return to Matthew 13 where we were this morning, but we didn't read these verses. Verse 14, and in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, hearing you will not hear, hearing you will hear and shall not understand, and seeing you will see and not perceive. So you can hear, but you're not understanding a thing. You can see, but you perceive nothing. It's not there. Now, as we made mention this morning, that you have apostles and you have disciples that go to Jesus and they want to know the meaning. They did not understand. They didn't perceive. But they didn't just shove it aside either. They knew something's being taught even when they didn't understand what it was. Something's being taught. Yes, there are dark sayings as the book of Proverbs begins. Yes, there are riddles of the wise, and you can understand them, especially if you go asking the right person, such as Jesus, the Son of God. All right, so hearing you will hear and shall not understand, and seeing you will see and shall not perceive. For the hearts of this people have grown dull. Here's the reason why. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. Now, understand, Jesus is not saying that He wants them blind and He wants them deaf, that He does not want them to understand. He's been trying to teach them. He's not saying, I want them to be ignorant still. He's not saying that. He's not saying, I don't want to heal them. He's not saying that at all. He's saying that their hearts have grown dull. Their ears hard of hearing. Their eyes they have closed because they don't want to see. They don't want to hear. They don't want to understand. And they don't want to be healed by Him. They don't want that. These things all follow from that heart that has been dulled. And I can tell you, I have seen, not as many as Christ did, but I have seen a lot who, it is true, their hearts are dulled. It is true. That they learn nothing. They learn nothing. You try and you try and you try and you try, and it's like you're on a treadmill and you're going nowhere. Doing a lot of work, but going nowhere. Because there are some folks, they don't want to see. They don't want to hear. They don't want to understand. They don't want to perceive. Because the moment they do is the moment they've got to put some things into action. And the moment they're going to have to admit to themselves, yes, there is judgment coming. And it's going to come from God. And He has told us precisely how we are to live. Jeremiah 22 and verse 21. Hear this now, O foolish people without understanding, who have eyes and see not, and who have ears and hear not. So Jeremiah is speaking to those in his day. Isaiah, actually, that was a prophecy. Isaiah wasn't necessarily speaking about the people of his day, because Jesus attributes it to those listening to him in his day. But I think what Isaiah said in all of that, and we just that Isaiah, the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, hearing you will hear and shall not understand. I think it goes beyond the first century and into our day, because we see a lot of that. We see a lot of it. And folks, they don't want to be told. Because it's just another thing they've got to push out of their mind, and they have to deal with their conscience. They don't want to be told anything like this. Now, man is in fact commanded to use your eyes and your ears. And you would find that already, that by implication, we are to open our eyes, open our ears, not have dull hearts, but in fact be absolutely interested in the Word of God. Absolutely interested in the plan of salvation and how God desires to be worshiped, and every detail that is part of the gospel. The law, the perfect law of liberty, that law of Christ, wanting that. And we can understand that by implication, you see this? Who have eyes and see not, who have ears and hear not. Well, that would mean you should be using them, but we do have direct commands in that. And we looked at this verse earlier today. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, this is repeated through the New Testament. And every time it's there, I personally try to stop and try to see a little more. Personally, I do. And understanding that that's exactly what God is saying. But we could go in the Old Testament and see it as well. But in the New Testament, here's just briefly Matthew 13, verse 43. Now, we already looked at verse 9, but verse 43, Mark 4, 9, Luke 8, 8, Luke 14, 35. Revelation, we have it repeated 2, verse 7, verse 11, verse 17, verse 29, chapter 3, verse 6, 13, and 22. And we could look at others. We could definitely look at others. And this is paying attention. Paying attention. And that what is being taught is vital in all this. And here we are blessed with not having that dull heart, with having an interest in what God says to the point of we put our lives in action to it. And it goes to the heart. And it stays there. And it's protected there. And we apply it. We apply it daily. And we are blessed with using eyes and ears. Matthew 13, 16. But blessed are you, for blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. These are the ones that actually wanted to know what the parable meant. They wanted to know the meaning, which means they took an interest. They wanted to know about it. Eyes and ears. God has created them both. Meaning, He has eyes, He has ears, He can see everything on this earth, the righteous, the unrighteous, acts of kindness, acts of goodness, acts of wickedness, He knows. And He's the one that absolutely will judge between them. And it also is for us, we have been given eyes and ears for a reason. Not just to function in this world, but in a greater thing. A greater thing. And of course, eyes and ears can be used metaphorical as well. For someone can be literally physically blind, or someone can be physically deaf, but it still applies to them. And that of paying attention and desire to learn from God. Desire what He has to say. There is no greater book given to us. There is no greater object on this earth than the Bible. No greater object. And today it's extremely difficult to convince people of that. It's extremely difficult. Even those who would agree with you may not actually practice it. May not be. They want to agree with you because they think it. But do they practice it? Well, not so sure. Not so sure about that. The words are for us, for our learning. We ask this evening, if you need to respond to the invitation, that you come as we stand and sing.